What is up, you guys, and welcome back to another video. I am Nastya Shutka if you do not know me, and today we are going to be doing a festive project. This is going to be a two-part series for the festive season, and we're going to start off with a lovely painted Christmas star, which is used for Christmas traditions in caroling. And if you want to know just a little bit of a background about this, in Ukraine there is a big culture around Christmas for caroling with your family and to go around the town or the village and to sing to your neighbors. Now you go in a really big group and usually you dress up in traditional clothing alongside having these beautiful stars that you see behind me. And I myself didn't partake in this tradition because I did grow up in the UK, sadly, but my family do have plenty of stories of doing this themselves. These stars are usually quite large, they're bright, they're well decorated. There's a lot of different styles that people make them with, so some people paint them, some people make them 3D, some people use twine to bulk it up, but today I'm going to be making a painted star. Now, this all came about because I saw a picture of someone making a star in the theme of a poppy. Now, that inspired me quite a lot because it was a little bit outside of the usual theme that people go for. Oftentimes people use Christian motifs on these stars. Now, usually these stars are supposed to represent the Star of Bethlehem, but in tandem with what I saw and what I was inspired by, I also wanted to make a star that was designed to be like a flower. But instead, the flower that I went for is the marigold. This flower is one of my favorite flowers. Even though our national flower is the sunflower, I feel much more connected to the Chornobrovci, and we have a lot of folk songs that have similar meanings and names to it, so I just really do love that flower. In the second part of this festive season upload, I am going to be doing a different kind of star, which is, let's say, a little more technical. It's a glowing star with some laser cutting, so definitely do check that out after you finish watching this one. It gives you a bit of variety if you don't care for painting. I know you haven't seen anything just yet, but do leave a like, do leave a comment, and do click that notification bell so you know when I upload next. And definitely share this with friends and family so they can also join in on the fun. Now, enough babbling, let's actually get on with the project and see where I take this, so let's go. So the first thing that we're going to do is go into Illustrator and make the stars that I'm going to be using for this project. Now, I do have the same stars, but they're going to be 3 different sizes. This is to allow just some layering, but they're not going to be spinning separately, which was my initial intent. I'm going to stick them down together so that they just spin cohesively, but I do need to make sure that the center point is accurate because that's just the most important thing, otherwise it's going to look a bit funky. Once I have that all done and ready to go, I've gone to the laser cutting machine to cut everything out. I got super lucky this time because I cut these pieces right before the machine broke down. And if you watch my other video, you will see that that was not fun. It prolonged the project for quite a while, but let's be honest, I procrastinated enough that it would have finished when it finished anyway. Once I was happy with those pieces, I took them home and now I started looking at how I was actually going to design them. I was inspired by that poppy star that I showed you guys early on, and I want to bring my own take on it. So of course, as I usually love to do it, I took a picture of my pieces all together with the bolt and I took it into Procreate. In Procreate, I do my design, I look at what works and doesn't work, but it's a very, very rough design. Nothing is finalized, and usually I just use it as a guideline, but a lot of changes happened throughout this project, so it doesn't necessarily look exactly like this mock-up, but it's close enough and the intent was there. With all of my supplies ready to go, I'm ready to start painting. So the main thing was just to kind of get the color that I wanted. It's very important with a Chornobrovci that you get the right color. It's not fully red, it's not fully brown, nor is it really orange. It's somewhere just in the middle, and I need to get that perfect color. Thankfully, with the MDF, the color really did seep through the bag. So even though I painted it a super bright red, at least in my opinion to start off with, the browns came out from the wood, so it hit the color palette that I really wanted to achieve anyway. Now, to be honest, this was a very, very easy project. It was quite relaxing to start off with, especially that center bit, because I fully understood and knew that that was exactly what I wanted to do. There was no doubt in my mind, there was no need to plan or to organize it. I just knew that that's what I wanted to be the focal point. And then the second and the third layer was where it got a bit muddled up and I had to figure some stuff out as we went along. But again, we'll see that in a second. As always with painting projects, I always like to tiptoe on the line of how realistic do I want to go and how stylized do I want to go. With this, I didn't want to make it too realistic just because I'm working with layers and different shapes, and I want it to be fun and bright. So I needed to emphasize the colors and the shapes so that they were really obvious from a distance so you could understand what you were looking at. A very important aspect of this star was that the flower in the first layer seeps out onto the second layer. So I had to make sure to measure out the edges to make sure that everything lined up quite nicely so it still looked like the flower even though it was jumping between the layers. So what I did was I outlined that and then painted that, and then I looked at how I wanted to decorate the bits of it and what colors to add. When working with warm tones, I love using a cool tone as a shade. Now usually that can be blue and it can be green, but my favorite in particular for this project is purple, because it is still warm enough that it doesn't stand out too much, but it just adds that depth that I want to the piece, obviously in the stylized sense. Something that I did plan was that I wanted to use the leaves of this flower on the edges of the second layer, but I also understood that I needed to give a bit of variety, so every other point is one leaf and then every other point after that is another leaf. So just to give it some variety to make it look interesting.
Like, it's not sweet. No. I think we can all agree number 5.
So by this point I had finished the leaves and they were looking exactly how I wanted them to look. It was falling a little on the nose for me, where it was a flower with leaves on a star-shaped canvas. So I wanted to add some extra colors and be a bit more free with it. I'm a little bit stuck because I've gotten to this point and I'm like, it looks good, but I want more yellow details on the edges. I don't want to like commit to something and ruin it. I'm gonna have a bit of a think and then we'll come back and reassess the situation. So I added some dots and some lines in yellow to bring out the other aspect of the flower, which is the yellow rims that it naturally has. And that way everything is still cohesive in color, but a little extra details are added to separate the layers from each other. And now that I've done my little bits, I think they're quite good. But the next thing I want to do is I want to add just a bit more dimension to the leaves using a darker green. So I'm going to go over the purple that I used as a shading color and we'll see how that goes. At the end of the day, even though I didn't use necessarily a very Christmas theme for my star, it still is a festive project. So I did want to add the colors of festivity, and that usually is red and gold. And now we're on to the third layer. I made sure to outline the previous layers so that I know what is going to be visible and what is going to not be visible. And then I went to town on this pattern that I initially had in the mock-up. Now the mock-up, I just picked a pattern, but I had to make sure that it worked because at the very tips, they didn't cross very well. So here I had to use a bit of imagination. Now, because I had to do this design on every single point, I didn't want to have to outline it. It just was going to be way too much work. And then I'd have to cover the pencil, you know how it is. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to freehand it. This is going to be what it is. Like, however it turns out is how it turns out. But I did go for a slightly pinker color, which was off of the color chart that I had for this piece, and I wanted to bring it back. I added an orange so that it gradiated into the pink, so the pink was less in your face, but then I still felt it didn't have enough of an oomph. And at this point I was debating doing a white outline. It felt a bit weird to do an outline whether black or white, and then I ended up settling for a gradient, which I think worked out quite well, going from pink to orange to red. It brought the colours a little more together. To do this, I got acrylic paint and I watered it down quite dramatically just so it's a thin, sheer paint. That way I don't affect the colour of the base too much. It still will be red, but I get the gradient that I want on the patterning that I did. It still deposits enough colour so the gradient is obvious, but it's just not harsh and it doesn't take away from anything that I've already done. And honestly, by this point, I was just freestyling. I had no plan at all for this. I just was like, well, let's get some lines in there. I think it will look good. Okay, the next question is, what color bonbons did I do? Originally, I was gonna do, no red ones, I think it's yellow. But I think low-key, they should be green. I think the bonbons should be green. God damn it. Should I even put bonbons? Oh, this is very difficult. It is the next day and we only really have the final touches to do on this star piece. I had a lot of decision making to do yesterday, but I think I got there with some trial and error. It was a very difficult decision to pick what color the bonbons should have been, so I asked around for a few people to get some opinions, and I think we have decided to go for green bonbons so that we can make all the colors cohesive. So as you can see with the green bonbons, they come together with this part of the green, and I didn't want this to be the only bit of green that was visible. Okay, I got carried away. I got way too excited. I forgot I still need to varnish, so let's do that first. So now it's time to stick these two pieces together with some trusted wood glue, Gorilla wood glue specifically. But let's try get this as accurate as possible. Every time. If I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it needs too much of an attachment because some there. And then with that, was that a good placement from the beginning? Sorry if my big fat head is in the way, but I need to make sure that that's accurate. And the best way to make sure this stays in place, let's hope that didn't move anything, but I will be back. Okay, the first layer is stuck on. As you can see, she's looking cute. But yeah, let's move on to the third one. I have separated my small little green peas, and annoyingly there's only one left to not add to the piece. So I'm just gonna have one lonely green fluffball pea in my collection of colours. Ugh, and that's how he feels dejected. I think I'm just gonna use Uhu glue. Now this is a power one. I'm not using this for any particular reason, it's just because I want to use this up before I use any of my new ones, so let's see how this works. I think Uhu glue works quite well on fabric. I'm just gonna do just a dollop, just like that. And then I'm gonna stick it on the edge. I got a technique for this as well. I did this by putting one on each side, so one on the tip, one on either side, and then one in the middle to join the three bottom ones together. That way everything held itself together, so I didn't really have to worry about it. Okay, I'm gonna get to painting my bolt. So that's dry, and it's time to just randomly make this look good. So, you know, like I usually like. Now that all of the stars are painted and glued together, we are good to move on to the stick portion. Now, with the stick, I did have to go and search all of London for them. Initially, I was gonna do it by myself. I had my eyes out on a couple of sticks around the area. I was even planning to go to a park and get my saw and saw down a branch until a friend was happy enough to tell me that that's actually illegal, that counts as park property. So I should have known that. That feels like an obvious thing. But I was gonna look for some branches, you know, that were already like hanging on the last fiber and then cut them down. So then technically I just would have helped it come down faster. But let's move on to see that.
Flashback.
My baby.
Technically you found it.
I did find it, but that's my stick.
I broke it.
Okay, so he helped me get the perfect stick.
Size.
Size stick, yes. I'm happy, I have my stick. After forcing my boyfriend to walk around London with me looking for sticks, we moved on to sanding, peeling them, and just refining the sticks, okay? There was a lot of bark on there, I had to chip away, and I had to sand it down so it was nice and smooth so that I can get a good stain on it. Once I did that, I just drilled a hole roughly at the height where I wanted the star to be at. I did leave a couple of bits of excess just to make sure that if the drill did cause a crack to form, well, I could avoid that basically. It's time to do a dry fit. Let's see how this goes. So, be careful because my little bonbons are fragile. Okay, so this is practice, so you get to see. She went in smoothly. There's a lot going on. Is that even fully in frame? It is. A few problems that we're gonna need to troubleshoot. One being, this is far too long. I wanted to do a safe height down to drill the hole because I was scared that the wood was gonna chip, so I wanted to give myself so that it could still be the height that I needed. Second thing being, I need to secure some of these bonbons just a little bit better. They're a little bit loose in some bits, so I wanna make sure that they won't fall off. Third thing, I'm gonna need to stain my stick because right now it's doing it all natural and it's cute, but I think it needs to be warmer toned to fit the style of the star. The fourth thing, we're gonna need to fix how it spins. So currently it doesn't spin very freely, and if it does spin freely, it basically loosens the screw. So I think to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to make the hole in the star a little by a breadth larger so that it doesn't rely on the threading of the screw. I think that would be my star done. Post dry fit, I went on to fix all of the problems. First thing being cutting off that excess bit that I was talking about. It needed to go. She was too tall, right? Once we got that sorted with a saw, I moved on to staining the stick. I was looking for a very specific color, and I think it took me ages to figure out something that I thought worked well with the color of the flower that I was going for. Now, I used India ink with a mixture of water just to thin it down so that it wasn't too bright. I wasn't looking for something that overtook the color of the star. I wanted it to complement, and I still wanted it to look natural. So I was going for a warm-ish brown, and with that I did about 5 or 6 layers of this India ink wash on the stick to make sure that it was the color I wanted it to be. And once I was happy, we moved on to varnishing. So the sun's beaming. It is bright as shit, but hopefully you can see this. We have made it darker. It is much more fitting. We have fixed the spinning issue as well without taking the screw out, so that's a major win as well. We've painted the back so it looks nicer. We've cut off the edge as well, so, and I actually cut it off a lot more than I needed to. Yeah, drill the hole bigger, so now it spins nicely. These are my favorite kind. I don't like the fully orange kind, and I don't like the more yellowy orange kind. I just want these ones. These are the best ones. We're back on the balcony. I have my stick, and I have some outdoor varnish to make sure. Well, look, I'm going to be real. This is what was in my cupboard, so this is what I'm going to be using. I'm not about to go buy anything else. so let's get popping. Let's get. It said to use a synthetic brush, which is what I have. Ooh. Winter has come to the UK very unprecedentedly. It is freezing when it was sunny and summery like the other day. So that's nice for me. This country's confused. We're confused politically, and we're confused by the weather. This stick is so shiny. I love it. It's gonna look so good. With all of the interesting aspects done of this piece, it's time to move on to probably the least interesting and the least necessary of skills. I just had to cut some ribbon, but this ribbon really does bring the whole piece together. The main thing that I was focusing on was cutting them the same length and to cut the edges so that they were still decorative and not just flat, because that's a bit boring. But with ribbon, you do have to seal off the edges, otherwise it will continue to fray. I got a candle and just burnt the edges so that they would stay in the shape that I wanted them to be.
The credit scoring we're being contacted by credit score companies telling them.
I hate it. And the last one. Today is the 4th of November, and the last time I touched this project was sometime in October, and well, she's gorgeous and I would have thought that I was finished by now. However, the ribbon, I don't love the way it sits and it needs to be changed. So I'm coming in with some wire so that I can. Okay, so the plan is to use the wire to wrap it on the back of the stick and have extended areas that will allow the ribbon to fall off of it so that they have a division between them, they have spacing between them so that they fall nice and gracefully on the back. Not the way it is on this stick as it is right now, where I've tied it all onto the stick and it just falls in one clump, and so nothing is really visible. It just looks like a clusterfuck of colors. Before I even do that, I need to untie all of my like double, triple knots that I did on this fabric thinking that it was fine. I hope this is quick. Hopefully less than half an hour, but that is debatable. Thankfully, that literally, I think, took me under 5 minutes. The ribbons were actually very loose. Now, I have to try to figure out how I'm gonna do this wire thing. So I'm just gonna like see how it goes basically. So with the wire being the final thing that I had to do, the piece is finally complete. So I think all that's left to do is for me to show you and for you guys to feel that Christmas energy, hopefully. These two projects were an amazing excuse for me to buy a full traditional fit. So I hope that you enjoy not only the project, but the sheer dedication I went to get these photos to look as accurate as they could be. But enough said, so let's actually see the project. If you want to stay in the loop for what is coming next before I can do a long form video on YouTube, then definitely follow me on my TikTok and my Instagram. My TikTok being Nastya Shudka Art and my Instagram being Shudka Art. There I'm more likely to upload progress videos or pictures of the projects that I'm doing so you can keep yourself updated. There's a lot of variety. I never do a project that is the same, so do stick around and thank you so much.